Okay, I am going to teach you right now the untalked about skill that is absolutely essential when it comes to deconditioning old patterns or current patterns with food that cause overeating. This is an essential but really widely untalked about skill that's necessary to undo patterns of overeating. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Carrie Nygaard. I've helped hundreds, thousands, even thousands of women overcome the struggle with food so they can just be normal and reach and maintain a happy place with their weight. I teach women how not to diet, how to do this in a place that's based upon brain science and from a place of being in harmony and in complete union with your body rather than feeling like you're working against your body. In this training, I'm going to tell you the top causes that create the desire to overeat. I'm going to tell you the little known key skill that's going to be just a huge breakthrough as far as being able to decondition and stop old patterns with food. And I'm going to teach you the 4 steps to do this skill. All right. First, you need to know that from the time that I was 9, 8 years old, I thought there was something wrong with my body. My belly was too big. There was something wrong. By the time I was 13, I was dieting. And that went on and on and on for over 20 years until my mid 30s, where I had lost and gained the baby weight 5 times already. But I was so plagued by mental chatter about food that I couldn't even enjoy my body or my mind anymore. I was plagued with thoughts about food. I had dieted and thought, now I get to be free, and I was anything but free. From that point on, I began, with God's help, I began to learn different skills and techniques, and different mentors came in my path that allowed me to create a program called Freedom with Body and Food that has freed hundreds of women from the struggle. It is established in a way to be in harmony with the hardwiring brain science, the hardwiring of our brain so that we can learn things about our brain and get in front of it and manage it. It's also based upon the harmony of being in complete union with our body. After that point, I no longer struggled with food. And I was able to reach and maintain a happy place with my weight without dieting, without counting calories, macros, all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and hit screen share because I have a few slides that I want to show you as we go into this mini class today. All right, well, first you need to know, and this is a quote by Brooke Castillo, we do not have an overeating problem. We have an under-feeling problem. We overeat because we're not willing to feel. And the reason why we're under feeling, the reason why we have a problem with feeling is because we've never been taught how to feel. I'm going to use the word feel and emotion interchangeably here throughout this mini training today. When it comes to your emotions or to feelings, what is an emotion? Ask yourself, if someone were to ask me, could I define what an emotion is? We, by and large, as a culture, have been taught to avoid, even have shame around our emotions, so much so that we don't even know how to feel. We really don't. We know how to yell when we're angry, but we don't know how to really feel our emotions. We know how to act out on our emotions. We know how to avoid and resist our emotions, but we don't know essentially what even an emotion or a feeling is. Remember, I use those 2 words interchangeably. Some of you are going to think, well, an emotion is a feeling. Okay, well, what's a feeling? It's a sensation in your body, and it's created by a thought. All emotions, all of our actions are fueled by emotions. Emotions have an energy or a quality to them, and everything we do is fueled by an emotion. You may be angry, and you may be pretending not to be angry, but that is still an action you're taking from anger. Not only that, but as human beings, we can feel lots of layered different emotions even at the same time. So if an emotion is just a sensation in our body, and if we don't so much have an overeating problem as an underfeeling problem because we eat in order not to feel, we know how to avoid our emotions, and so we eat, and we don't even know how to even feel our emotions. It's a skill that was never taught to us. It was never taught to the generation that raised us either, and so on. You need to know that an emotion is just a sensation in your body. Let me go back a second. So when I was in my mid-30s, I didn't know this. I was about, I don't know, mid-30s when I first learned that an emotion is something to feel in my body. I had lots of drama thoughts in my head about feeling an emotion, but I didn't know that there was actually a sensation in my body every time I felt an emotion. Sure, I knew that some people would have butterflies in their stomach or things like that. I knew little hints, but all emotions are felt in your nervous system, which runs through the meridian of your body. Therefore, you can actually feel an emotion rather than avoid an emotion and act out on emotion. And if you're willing to feel an emotion, then you won't be overeating to avoid it. Not only that, the desire to eat food is also an emotion. It's a desire. It has some urgency to it. I call it an urge, but it's also an emotion. So remember that. I'm going to get back to that point here in a moment. There are two things that cause overeating. There's over desire and over hunger for food. I'm not going to get into over hunger today, but over desire. There are 6 things that fuel this emotion of over desire for food. It's restriction. When we restrict through either caloric or even just saying I'm going on a diet, there's restriction involved there. When we restrict, it gets it flips something I call the survival response in our lower brain. We are hardwired to survive. Therefore, the unconscious hardwiring programming of our brain is to survive. And so if you restrict food, and especially if you've gone on difficult, extremely restrictive diets very much, that survival switch becomes very sensitive and gets flipped very easily. And when that survival response is flipped, guess what happens? We have obsessive thinking about food, and we tend to overeat food, which is why people restrict and then binge, which is why they gain the weight back and then some. It's the survival response being flipped in our brain. Restriction causes over desire for food. An urge reward pattern causes desire for food. The urge reward pattern is because, again, the hardwiring of our brain, every time we eat because we feel an urge to eat, we're then rewarded with feel-good hormones in our brain like dopamine. So that's called the urge reward pattern. That causes over desire for food. Then there's buffering, excuse me. Buffering is when you use food to solve for your emotions. It's when you eat instead of allowing yourself to feel the emotion. It numbs or it distracts you from the emotion. There's 3 other things, a total of 6 things that cause, excuse me, let me get a drink. That cause over desire to eat. That's refined foods, limiting beliefs or thoughts around food, thinking I just can't control myself around food. That in of itself will cause out of control behavior with food. And then number 6 is established patterns or behaviors with food. If you're used to eating popcorn every time you watch TV, then just someone turning on the TV you're going to have a desire or an over desire to eat popcorn. But let's talk about the first 3 main ones: the restriction, the urge reward pattern, and buffering. All of these have to do with emotions. All 6 of these have to do with emotions because they create desire, which is an emotion. But I want to talk specifically about the top 3: restriction, the urge reward pattern, and buffering. Because I want to tell you a little known skill that is absolutely key to solving or resolving overeating, patterns you have with overeating. So anytime you feel an emotion, which is just a sensation in your body, and let me tell you a story so you can really grasp this concept. I remember, because this was back in 2015, I lived in this rental home. My family and I, we lived in this rental home, and I was in the basement cleaning. And this is when I had gotten to my happy weight again, but I was just learning, and I was really highly motivated to learn other skills other than just counting calories or restricting dieting to lose weight and be happy with my body. I was discovering that my body was not me, but that I could be in partnership with her. So it was this really sensitive growth period of my life where I was seeing things in new ways and having lots of ahas and really deconstructing, and then reconstructing my relationship with my body and with food. And so I learned that emotion is just a feeling, just a sensation, a feeling. A feeling is meant to be felt in your body. And so I was in the basement. I was cleaning, kind of doing menial tasks, cleaning up toys probably. And I had this urge, I should go eat. And I stopped. I was aware. I stopped to be aware. And I thought, I'm not hungry. Why do I want to go eat? Am I avoiding an emotion? Am I feeling something? And I got quiet for a second and I noticed I feel bored. This is kind of a boring task, and my brain feels uncomfortable with this boring task, and it it's telling me that the solution to this boredom is to go eat. So it can buffer, right, the uncomfortable emotions of doing this task. So the first thing we can do when we feel an emotion is we can resist it or avoid it or distract from it. That's when that would be going and eating. Okay. The second thing we can do is we can act on it. If we're bored, right, then we can act on being bored. I'm bored. Oh, when I see my kids, when they act bored, they're kind of whiny and they kind of get kind of squirrely and they kind of climb on me, right? They're acting out on that feeling of boredom. If they wanted to distract themselves or avoid the feeling of boredom, they would go maybe try to watch a screen or something like that. But this is the thing, number 3, that nobody teaches us because they didn't know it. I will say in recent years, this is in the counseling and therapy and coaching world, this is really gaining a lot of steam, a lot more awareness around this. But get this, you can actually just feel the sensation of an emotion in your body and not resist it and not act on it. You can just allow it to be there. And studies on emotions show that the mass majority of emotions that we feel will last no longer than 90 seconds, and most of them much less than that. And when we practice feeling in emotions, even less and less than that. I discovered that day in my basement that I was feeling bored, and I got conscious and I went through 4 steps that I'm about to share with you. These are the steps. This is the FEEL model. This is the feel model. These are the 4 steps to processing or to feel your feelings rather than acting out on them or avoiding them. The first step is to find it in your body. So I realized, oh, I feel bored. And then I thought, where in my body am I bored? I brought all my mental awareness into my body. And I noticed that there was something up here in my chest. I felt, oh, I feel a kind of a tight, stiff feeling up here in my chest. You want to drop into your body, locate where it's located. Now, boredom for me is going to feel different than boredom for anyone else. Emotions are specific and individualized to each person. So I discovered I was feeling bored. The second thing is to entertain it, welcome it, get to know it, name it. What does it have to tell you? There's a stiff feeling in my chest, and I know that it's boredom. And rather than avoiding it, I'm going to welcome and I'm going to be really curious, like a science experiment that you're observing. I'm going to be really curious about what is this sensation all about? The second E is to examine it. Be curious. What is it like? Does it have, what are its qualities? Does it have a color, a weight, a temperature? Does it move? And you know what I noticed? It feels like a stiff piece of cardboard and it's brown, just like cardboard. Feels pretty boring right there. But you know what I discovered? It wasn't near as uncomfortable as what my brain was making it out to be before I became aware of what it really meant to feel boredom in my body. The 4th step is to just let it be. Don't have any agenda or judgment. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't say, okay, let's feel this so we can hurry and get rid of it. No, allow it to be in your body. And your body knows how to process and release emotions, but we have to allow the emotion to exist. We have to acknowledge it and allow it to be processed in order for this to happen. And you know what I noticed? After about 60 seconds, this feeling of boredom went away. And I just continued to do what I was doing. And if the boredom came back, I would say, yep, I'm feeling bored. And I would just keep cleaning. It wasn't a problem to feel bored. I didn't need to go eat to solve for it. Therefore, by going through this 4-step process, this is the FEEL process is, there's different ways to remember it. This is just what I teach to my clients and how to remember it. This is the 4 steps to feeling to feel a feeling or to process an emotion. But that when we do that, we're able to experience great results. So Camille said, food isn't a top priority or taking up space in my mind. I don't constantly think about my next meal or get super excited about foods that used to excite me because I no longer see them as something to sneak or off limits. My new saying to myself and others is to feel your feelings, do not feed them. I had another client. Let me come out of this. I'm going to stop the screen share. I had another client this week that I coached, and where's my screen share? Let me take that off. There we go. And last week she said, I can't stop eating the chips and the chocolate. I just can't stop. And I took her through this process and I taught her how to do it. And I said, go buy a bag of chips, go buy some chocolate, put it on your counter, and I want you to go through this process over the week and then come back and return and tell me how it goes. And she did it. And she says, guess what? They just sat there for a few days. And then one day I ate a serving of chips. And she says the bag was a smaller bag. It had 2 servings in it. She says, I ate half of it. And the other half still sitting there a week later. She goes, and the chocolate's still sitting there. She says, what I discovered is that I actually can eat 1 serving. And when I allow myself to feel my emotions, I'm able to stay genuinely in control with the food around me that I thought I could not control. I want you to know that I'm going to be soon, very soon, opening the doors sometime next week for my Freedom with Body and Food program, which I go through 8 modules. It's a 12-week program to teach women how to be genuinely and consistently in control of food, to become a normal eater, to no longer struggle with food or with body. If you would like to get the email to be added to the list to get the information, then go ahead and go to carrienygaard.com/FBF waitlist. If you look above or below this video, I will put the link in the description of this video. Thank you so much. And remember, try the 4-step process to feeling your feelings rather than eating your feelings. Remember, we don't have an overeating problem so much as we have an under feeling problem. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.